Growing your practice without the essentials of HR in place is a risky choice. Some essentials are required by law. Other essentials are strategic pillars that's just going to help any practice grow. My guest today works with physicians and practice leaders to add HR smartly to their practice, and she's going to tell us what those essentials are. I'm Carl White, principal at Market Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. That's usually what they want, but care is better when those who have to care for patients also own the practice, because then every decision that's got to get made, whether it's business, clinical, whatever it is made by the same people who have to turn around and take care of patients. So we can feel really confident that patient care is always going to stay top of mind. My guest today is Debbie Rabishaw. Debbie has more than 30 years of HR leadership experience, much of it in healthcare and healthcare-related practices. She partners with physicians and practice leaders to navigate HR compliance, people operations, and growth in a highly regulated environment. As the founder of Next Step Advisory, Debbie provides fractional HR support focused on practical, real-world solutions that strengthen teams and support sustainable practice growth. Debbie, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're recording this in February. It snowed again this morning here in Chicagoland.
Chicago's not a great place to be in February.
It's tough. It's not for those who like anything above 30 degrees, I guess.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true.
Which is what I say every time I walk outside. But it's good to have you here. It's been a long time since we've had an HR topic of any kind. I can't remember the last time we had somebody who's, neck deep in HR the way you are. So this is going to be a good one. Really good advice. I want to start though. Regular listeners know we're not going to start quite there. They know what I'm going to say. That was a short bio, but that's what I asked for. So tell us more about you, more than what I just read.
Sure. Well, I'm happy to. I spent most of my career either in corporate or in, as you mentioned, healthcare environments, hospitals, behavioral health care, hospice care, revenue cycle management, so healthcare adjacent, and either served as part of the HR team or running HR for those kinds of organizations. And after 30 plus, God, every time you say 35, it sounds like so much, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, you gave it to me, so I know.
I was like this, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I decided to launch my own business after a long career in more formal HR settings, because I knew that there were so many other businesses, smaller businesses out there, healthcare practices that needed good advice, good hand-holding, good support, partnership in their people practices that weren't able to get it. And so I started my fractional consulting practice about a year and a half ago.
Good. How's it been going so far?
Awesome. Busy.
Yeah.
Some days the climb is steeper than others if you work for yourself. But God, I've met such great people along the way, and I love partnering with them.
Yeah. And it's nice. I mean, I came from corporate too, and delayed gratification became a way of life. Like you can do something and maybe you see the results, maybe you don't, but it's never fast. But out you're working with private practices, you can see it really quick. It's nice. You can see it really quickly.
Yeah, the appreciation is real.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think something's obvious and like, oh my God, I never would have thought of that. Like, oh, vice versa, I'm sure. So
right,
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. So we're talking about the HR basics every practice must have. I want to start with what usually triggers somebody to call you in. Like what's going on where either they've outgrown it, they're doing it themselves, you get a call. Like what's that scenario typically look like?
Confusion is usually what prompts somebody to call, or the fact that they just don't know how to have difficult conversations. Or they understand that they have compliance needs that they just don't understand because state HR is different in every state. So usually I'm dealing with owners, founders, practice leaders who are at an inflection point. Either they're starting up a practice, they've been running a practice, but they know that their systems have not kept up with where they need to be, and it keeps them up at night. Or they're growing and one of my clients is a concierge medical practice,
Hmm.
and they're growing. I suspect they'll start growing over state lines, and then we'll really need
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
hold hands and figure that out,
Hmm.
how we can grow and scale in
Hmm.
a way that makes sense across the entire organization. So
Yeah.
there's lots of things that keep my clients up at night.
Yeah. And is it typically like they call you because they're getting nothing like bad has happened per
Mhm.
se, or is it more like we just got a letter from the state and oh my God, or it's like how do you break that down? Because it's
You know
better
what
if
it
they're like
is?
I'm nervous but nothing bad's happened. That's always the better of the two, right?
That's it. That's
Yeah.
really it. Yeah.
Okay.
They're nervous. Nothing bad has happened yet, but they know they're on borrowed time, especially
Hmm.
living in a compliance-based environment.
Hmm.
Rules can be black and white. And if you fudge rules,
Yeah.
that can result in costly expenses. So
Yeah.
often it starts with, hey, I need a handbook, right? I
Mm.
haven't done my handbook since 2020.
Hmm.
And oh my gosh, the laws have changed so much since then.
Yeah.
Or um, attendance. Attendance is always a big thing in medical practices, right? Are you
Mm.
on time? Are you showing up? Are you calling in? So we talk about how have you had those conversations with your employees? What are the policies that you have that you can point to? How do you incorporate that in your performance management system? And then they
Hmm.
go, performance management
Yeah.
system, right?
Yeah. Oh God, that takes me back to corporate.
It is a little bit it has essence of that, but people want to be held accountable. They want to know what the rules of the game are. Employees do.
Of
They
course.
want and employers want to have practices that serve their patients.
Hmm.
You can't serve the patients when the employees aren't present or don't
Hmm.
or don't feel good about showing up to
And
work.
just feel like they're walking on eggshells or yeah.
Yeah, they everybody wants to know how the game is played.
Yeah.
And so transparency is not a bad thing.
It's not. I used to say like I'm not sure I really care what the rules are. I'm sure I care about it, but really I don't care. Just what are they? Just what
Right.
are
Just
they? What
tell
are
me.
they? Yeah.
I I can either like them or not like them, but I want to know what they
At
are.
least I can know what they are and I can start to figure it out.
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
That's right.
Yes. But my joke was I could line up 10 people in company X who ought to know what they are and ask you, so what are the rules? And I would get 10 different answers. Like, and that's a problem, you know?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
sometimes I'll ask the leaders what the rules are, and they'll be like, I don't know. Do you have this? I don't know. So by the time we're done working together, they know.
They know. Yeah. So let's get into it then. So the foundational HR systems that ought to be in
Mhm.
place, because there could be a lot of them and you don't want to necessarily bring in everything at once, but what are the foundational must-have systems in the HR world that
Hmm.
every
So
practice?
yeah, usually when I go and evaluate, I'll do an HR audit and I'll say, okay, let's start with compliance because that is the lowest hanging fruit that we can
Mm,
address.
hmm.
At least you can feel secure
Mm,
as you move up Maslow's hierarchy of HR
yeah.
needs, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And so what we start with is, do you have a handbook, right? Because we just talked about the rules of the road. What's your handbook look
So that's
like? So
policies, procedures.
policies, procedures, um, behavioral expectations,
Got it.
right? Because you have to point to something because you
Hmm.
can't have an oral tradition.
Hmm.
You have turnover and then it
Hmm.
changes and people hear things differently. So you put it in
Hmm.
black and white. Um, so that's important. Understanding, are you compliant with your state laws? Like PTO, the
Hmm.
state of Illinois, there's lots of different leave laws.
Hmm.
And some of the other states I operate in, because I operate nationally, you have to understand what the state requires of you. And
Hmm.
if you're operating practices in multiple states, you have to be able to coordinate that.
Yeah.
So some of the things that we look at are what does your compliance look like? Do you have job descriptions? Do your
Hmm.
people understand what their job really is and what the parameters of their jobs
Hmm.
are? Because you can use a job description to build a key performance indicator or some kind of performance measurement tool.
Wouldn't you think they would tie together? We
They tie
expect you to
together.
do this. Now let's measure how well you did that. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So there's some foundational things in that regard. How do we onboard employees and give them a great experience so that it's consistent? We're
Hmm.
communicating the values of the organization.
Hmm.
We're making sure that we've crossed all our T's and dotted our I's when bringing them on board. So a good employee experience is foundational.
Hmm.
Performance management. Um, tools, understanding what I call job architecture, but really, if you think about it, it's what's the job, how's it supposed to be performed, and how are you measuring success on that
Mm-hmm.
job?
Mm-hmm.
And then the compliance piece, do you have that taken care of? And then
Okay.
once we do that, we can take a look at, do you have a growth strategy? There's lots of layers to it, but I would say those are the foundations.
Yeah. It's interesting you said just in no particular, you mentioned growth strategy. It's a couple of clients that I've got, they're struggling with that because they can't find people. And I just
That's
stare
hard
at it
right now.
and I'm in the back of the cheap seats, right? Where I just look at it and I say, and it's not new. It just happens to be their industry. There's just been a labor shortage for a while. I'm like, well, I guess you have to devote more time to it. I'm not sure what else to, nobody's asking me. This is kind of what I say to myself. It has to become a bigger priority. Like if it's hard to find people, it's going to take longer to do it. So to your
Yeah,
point, like what's the,
that's true.
you
And are
know,
you hiring them the right way? So that's
then there's
actually
that.
probably another pillar,
Yeah.
foundational pillar is how are you sourcing, recruiting, selecting for
Hmm.
longevity?
Yeah. Yeah. And I gotta believe, tell me if I'm wrong, you probably see, I'm wondering if like for every job description, every 10 job descriptions you see for the first time, how many of them you go, that looks pretty good versus, oh my God. Like I think of the practice manager of the world,
Mhm.
6 or 7 jobs, and the typical job is probably at least the expectations. Like I wonder how much time you spend just, blowing up and redoing job descriptions. I'm
Mhm.
curious, like, is that a common thing? Just
Um,
poorly thought through, poorly written job descriptions.
yeah, usually I just start from
You
scratch
just start from
and I
scratch.
say, okay, this is what you thought the job would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with what the job actually looks like
Mm-hmm.
because maybe you had intention, but maybe you haven't managed to that intention. And so
Mm-hmm.
that job has kind of morphed into
Right.
whatever that person is doing, and you've um, implicitly blessed that behavior or
Yeah.
those responsibilities because you really didn't want to have a difficult conversation and redirect.
Mm. Yeah. And plus small business, people step in, people start doing stuff that they didn't. And
They do, they
yeah.
wear many hats, and there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But um, but it's nice to at least incorporate what that job looks like, not the
Yes.
title, not based
Yes.
on the title, but what does this job for this organization look like?
Right. And in the compliance side, like just sort of, compliance to state law, is there like a general kind of hierarchy? Yes, you want to be compliant with every law, but like, is there
Mhm.
some more important than others, I guess, that you should start
Well,
with?
I would say hierarchically, always federal. And
Fair
then when you're
enough.
going
Yeah.
to state, right?
Hmm.
Then when you're going to state, you take a look. Usually they'll tell you how many people, triggers, whatever the requirement
Mm.
is.
Hmm.
And it's so funny. Some of the responses I get are, really? That's the law? And I'll be like, yeah, that's the law.
Hmm.
You're supposed to be doing it. If you're not, that's okay. Let's pick it up and start now.
Hmm.
Better late than never.
Hmm.
And so usually the law will dictate what a number of people in your organization will trigger
Right.
to activate requirements with that law
Right.
or
Okay.
adherence to that law.
Okay. Okay. Um, so comply. All right. So after you get to that, you've got the base level of foundational systems. What's the
Mhm.
next level, would you say?
Um, I would say now, making sure that your managers, your leaders are on board with how to have conversations around all of this stuff.
Mm,
So once you have the level playing field, how are you educating? How are you preparing people for cross training? How
mm,
are you preparing your leaders to be managers, and not shy away from doing the hard stuff, which you want them to do. Hard stuff means conversations about unpleasant things or
mm,
things that feel uncomfortable.
mm-hmm,
And it takes practice.
mm-hmm.
That's how you get more comfortable with it. There's
Yeah.
just some conversations that you're never going to feel comfortable with. Even
Yeah.
after the number of years I'm in HR, I have a better toolkit of phrases and
Yes.
words and scenarios to draw on.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean I love
Yeah.
doing it or having those conversations. It's just a lot of years of practice of doing that.
Yeah. When a client says, I don't want to do it, like, what do you say to, what do you say to them? Say, look, you have to, to convince them to say, look,
It's not my job to convince them. It's my job to
true.
let them know what their responsibility as an employer is, and
Hmm.
then they can choose how they want to fashion their culture.
Hmm.
But what I can be doing there for them is I can be coaching them about
Hmm.
how to have those conversations. I can feed them words. I can role play with them in practice. Okay,
Hmm.
let's do it once. Let's get the discomfort out.
Hmm.
And I say, you're going to feel nervous. You're
Hmm.
going to be like shaking a little bit if you have to terminate somebody.
Yeah.
Here's the script that you can follow. Somebody else will be there to hold your hand. You deliver the message, somebody else will deliver the logistics of it.
Hmm.
So, your job is to run your business and to care for patients
Hmm.
ultimately,
Hmm.
right? You don't have to be an expert at it, but
Yeah.
you have to be willing to do what you need to do if you want to own this practice
Hmm.
and have it function, within the boundaries
Yeah.
of the law.
Yeah. I think of it as, doctor for patient presented with, and you said, look, you need to, I don't know, change certain health habits. And the sooner you
Mm-hmm.
start, the easier it's going to be. But then you don't, it's like, well, it's just going to get harder and harder. And the problem's
Yeah.
going to fester and get worse.
Sometimes those patients, though, they know they have those problems. They just don't want to talk about it.
True.
Sometimes when you tell them their performance is bad, they don't know that,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
right? They're like,
boy.
what? I thought I was doing fine. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's just, yeah. Okay. Um, what are so now let's take the practices that are growing.
mhm.
What are some misconceptions you find practices have about HR, even when they're growing? Because you think, well, I'm growing, something's got to be going well when it comes to people, when it comes to this side. But what do you still hear?
For growing practices,
Mhm. Or as
the
their just
misconceptions,
misconceptions as their practice grows about HR?
mhm, um, that this is usually what I try to teach on that I think are misconceptions. First of all, HR is not the police. I
What do you
talk a
mean?
lot about
What do you
I
mean by
talk a
that?
lot about compliance, but we're
Hmm.
not there to blow the whistle or we're not the red lights behind you when you drive,
Mm,
right? We're not there to make you feel guilty. We're there
okay.
as a resource and a partner to help make sure that you get the best out of probably one of your most costliest operating expenses, which is
Hmm.
payroll.
Yeah.
So,
So do you mean like if I had a growing practice and I brought an HR person in, the misconception is they're gonna turn me in. They're gonna if they find something
right.
if I'm breaking a law somewhere, they're gonna
Right.
report me. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, they're going to tell me what I have to do, why I'm wrong. Um,
Mm,
it's going to be hard. I've been doing it this way forever and nothing's happened. And I would say to that, it only takes one person for something to happen.
hmm.
And maybe you just haven't met that person yet.
Hmm.
Um, and we have employees are savvy consumers of employment law.
Are they
They
really?
know what they can get away with and what they can and what you can get away with as an employer and what you can't.
Wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of information available to employees that there wasn't when I started,
Hmm.
my work 30
Hmm.
years ago.
Right.
And so they'll just look up on the computer, they'll Google it, they'll
Hmm.
put it in Chat GPT and they'll say, tell me about this
Hmm.
situation. Um, what
Mm.
should I be concerned about? And then you'll hear about it.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so HR is police. That's one misunderstanding. What are some other ones?
Mhm. Um, it's another misunderstanding. That
It's only
we're
only
that
about
we're
compliance. That's
we're
kind of
all
what.
about the employees.
Oh,
So
interesting. Tell me more.
here's the difference. Yeah.
Mm,
We are not just about advocating for employees. We are there to be a business partner
mm,
with the leaders and the CEOs of our organizations so that they understand both sides of the conversation.
mhm,
What is the right thing to do for the business, which is what I always say,
mhm,
and what is the right thing to do for the employees. And
mhm.
so I am not only an advocate for employees, I really am a business advocate.
Yeah.
And I'm there to help make sure that whatever you need to get out of the business,
Mhm.
I'm helping you get your people there too.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? It hadn't quite crystallized. So as you were talking, I was thinking, people are a resource. So you have to treat them legally, but you can also try to, I don't like how this sounds, but get the most out of them, just like any other resource.
Well,
you
you want to
know?
optimize performance, right?
Correct.
And there's
Correct.
so many ways to do that. And you
Yeah.
can do that through your values system.
Hmm.
You can do that. It was so interesting. I had somebody say to me recently, I can either be a nice manager or I can be a good manager. And I said, why can't you be both?
Hmm.
One is not exclusive of the other,
Hmm.
right? They thought either I had to be mean and tell people how it's done, or I could be kind and maybe fudge the rules and let them get away with stuff. And I said, they're not mutually exclusive. You can
They
be
don't, yeah.
you can be a good manager and you can be a kind manager.
Yeah. You can deliver a difficult message with respect,
Hmm.
professionally, without being a jerk. Yeah. There's a company I worked at where when I came in, they were talking about everything seemed to be harmony. So people would agree, or we would all feel good. This is what I was told, but
Hmm.
nothing ever got done. And so the new leadership came in and said, we're going to have candor. And I forget, it wasn't the word violent, but it was like aggressive candor or something. And people,
Radical, radical
something like
candor.
that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
really what the way it was put into practice was that the leadership sort of said things however they wanted, and
Yeah, that's not
they
radical candor.
tried. Yeah. And so people kind of the message back was off candor. Can't argue with that. But
Right.
the looking down on those beneath the org chart on you, just not feeling it in practice.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
nevertheless, yeah, like those aren't your two choices.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What are some other ones? I'm curious
Oh
if
gosh.
there's any.
Some other misconceptions about HR, um, that we're not a business partner,
Mhm.
that we're
That is true.
there.
That's been there when I was in corporate. It just seemed like every other year HR was trying to figure that out. How do we
Yeah,
do
we're
that?
we're pencil pushers, we're paper pushers.
We're
Um,
not on
you
my
know,
side. They're not on my side. We only see, yeah, only see them when there's
right? Kind of
troubles.
tangential to that.
Yeah.
We serve the employees and the employer,
Hmm.
but we have so much more capability
Hmm.
than that.
Hmm.
Um, we just see things differently.
Hmm.
Usually you have some kind of operations director or practice operations, maybe, who deals with everything. Our specialty is just the people
Yeah.
part and
Yeah.
getting that right.
Yeah. And
Um, Let me think hard if I
that's
have
okay.
one any
Well,
more
yeah,
misconceptions. That's a lot of
that's pretty
misconceptions.
good. Yeah. No,
We
just what,
correct those. We're golden.
yeah. I mean, I like the question because every discipline has its misconceptions, but just
Oh
in the
yeah.
world of business, I mean, this has got to be HR is way up there, just in the volume of them and just the severity of them, it would seem. Because
Hmm.
people don't see HR like, you see your corporate finance people all the time. You see other functions more often, I think.
Oh, I have a
Yeah.
good one. See, I knew if you
Okay.
gave me enough time, I'd
There
come
we
up with
go.
another one. Um, HR are party planners. That is a good one from a
Yeah.
long time ago, right? That's a
Okay.
dinosaur. We're not party planners. We are torchbearers of the culture, just
Mm.
like the leadership. And really
Hmm.
that rest on the leadership. We just happen to help actualize the culture,
Hmm.
but we're not party planners.
No, no. There's marketing. I wouldn't even be good at that, but yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's going to be one sad party if you want me to plan it.
that's right.
Um, so we've covered a pretty good amount of ground. But is there anything you think we should have touched on that we did? I mean, you and I could do a dozen episodes easily, because just it's such a vast, vast world. But at the level we've been at, is there anything you think we should have touched on that we missed?
Um, the only thing I would offer is that one of my big things is around people practices. Is don't be afraid to treat employees as adults,
Okay.
right?
What's an example of things that you see?
Um, Sometimes we tend to make decisions for employees,
Mm.
or we say they're not going to be able to adhere to this PTO policy, or they're not going to whatever. I think if we treat employees like adults, we let them be accountable
Hmm.
for what they need to get done
Hmm.
and hold them accountable.
Hmm.
Accountability is not a four-letter word.
No. And I think people would rather, because yeah, like what the employee is going to start seeing is, well, they just keep making all the decisions. So it's just this self-fulfilling prophecy of it's like the employee can't make the decision, misunderstanding. The employee
Mhm.
starts to see this and goes, I guess they want to make the decision and they run the place. So I'll wait for them to tell me what to do, which is the opposite of probably what both sides want.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So let them do it. That's funny that they wouldn't be able to get, I don't know, how complicated is that PTO policy that they're wondering if they won't be able to grasp it?
Right. Or it's, often, or, it has to be down to the minute. Like, are
Mm,
we tracking to the minute? Right? What what kind of bumper rails are we putting around it? Sometimes we need it,
hmm
sometimes we don't.
hmm
But I think the thing there is, remember that you're employing adults, and you can employ them to make adult decisions and hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Accountability is not overrated.
No, no, agreed. And the other question I always like to wrap up with is the context is this: we've caught a listener's attention and they're saying to themselves, Debbie's right. I'm that nervous one lying awake at night, or that, and I need to get started on this because I feel like we need to get better at this.
Hmm.
But where do I start? I mean, it's such a vast thing, HR. Where do I start? So what would you say to that person?
Yeah, start with a conversation. Find an HR consultant that you trust. Call
Okay.
me,
Mm-hmm.
um, and talk with them about the things that you're seeing in your organization,
Mm-hmm.
and get some professional guidance about what they think the first steps would be. Often, my first steps are um, auditing what's going on in the organization. If
Mm-hmm.
it's more of an employee relations issue,
Mm-hmm.
handle that immediately, and
Mm-hmm.
then figure out if there's deeper issues that need to be addressed and can
Mm-hmm.
be redirected and righted.
Mm-hmm.
But from a compliance standpoint, I always start with an HR audit to see what needs to be updated, what needs to be fixed, what's missing,
Mm-hmm.
what could you be doing better. But I would say don't rely on only ChatGPT to solve your employee problems, because ChatGPT is a computer and they have lots of information, but
Mm-hmm.
not context and nuance and
Yeah.
coaching opportunities. And so don't try to solve all of your problems
Yeah.
by popping it in or having a chat with your GPT.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll add one, and maybe it's as simple as ask yourself, do we have an employee handbook? And if the answer is no, or we did it, but it's 5 to 7 years old or older or something like that, then call in a Debbie to say, because if
Great
you don't have
question.
that, you
Yeah.
probably have other gaps also. So
Yeah,
don't just
great
solve
call
that
out.
one little thing. Get the
That
audit.
is a good litmus
There
test,
you
right?
go. No,
Check
if
the
we don't,
date
yeah,
of your
check the date.
handbook.
Yep. If you have to blow dust off it, or
Right,
if the spine when you open it cracks because it's never been opened.
right.
Yeah.
Another good one is, what's your turnover metric? How often are your people turning over?
Mm,
That could be a reflection of the culture and something else is wrong in your organization.
that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. You can't, and those are easy to find. Like we either do or don't have a handbook. It either is
Yeah.
or isn't
You
recent.
probably know that just listening to this,
Yeah.
what the
Yeah.
answers to those two questions are.
Yeah. And our employee base is a revolving door, or it's feeling like it.
That's right.
Yeah. Which, and the answer is don't just solve those one or two things. Bigger fish to fry, and get the audits, get the lay of the land, you know,
Right.
tackle it while while it's calm.
Right. Just like in healthcare, you can treat a symptom, but really you want to get to what the root
There
cause
you
is
go. There
and
you
correct it
go.
from that
And just like in
perspective.
healthcare and in life, the sooner you tackle a problem, the easier, cheaper it is to
All of
do
it.
so.
That's right.
Everything. Yes.
That's right.
Cool. Debbie, thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, I want you to come on more often because, like I said, there's at least a dozen episodes we could do without even thinking hard about what they would be. So I want to do
Sounds
more
good
of
to
this.
me.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so we've got the contact information you provided to me in for the show notes for your episode. So anybody, any listener, you want to talk to Debbie, you've now got another way to find her. And a couple of points before wrapping up for this episode. First, please subscribe to Practice Care if you haven't done so. Practice Care is one word. We're everywhere, easy to find. We do a new episode every week, and that's the easiest way to stay up to date. And also, if you're someone like Debbie or us, you serve private practice owners, or you're one yourself, and you've got some experience or expertise on the business side of private practice, and don't overthink what that is. Something you could think is obvious and boring is mind-blowing to somebody else. Don't overthink it. In the show notes to every episode of Practice Care, there's a link, a couple of clicks, take you a minute, tell us what's on your mind, and we'll get you scheduled as soon as possible. Thanks very much, and until next time.